Hey everybody, this is Jesse P. Gilmore, agency transformation coach and founder of Niche in Control, author of The Agency Owner's Guide to Freedom, and the creator of Leverage for Growth. I'm the host of the Leverage for Growth podcast, and I know that in order for you to scale your agency successfully, there are multiple shifts that need to happen within your mindset, skill set, and leadership style. I am on a mission to interview marketing and PR agency owners on their journey to 6, 7, and 8 figures and leverage the lessons from their journey to save you time, energy, and money to get your agency to the next level. If you find value in these episodes, watch the case study video to learn more about Leverage for Growth and how we successfully scale agencies at nicheincontrol.com/case study. That is nicheincontrol.com/case study. You are now listening to Leverage for Growth. Hey everybody, this is Jesse P. Gilmore, founder of Niche in Control and creator of Leverage for Growth. Welcome to the Agency Leverage Edition. Today I'm excited because I'm here with Chad Bauer, the owner and president of SR&B Advertising, a full-service, omni-channel performance and growth marketing agency for brands serious about growth. Thanks for coming to our show today, Chad.
Thank you for having me, Jesse. Looking forward to the convo.
Awesome, man. Can you tell us a little bit about the history and background of your agency?
Sure. Our agency is a little bit over 60 years old. We were founded in Baltimore, Maryland back in 1964. My father acquired the firm back in the late 80s and ran the team for about 35 years. I came on about 12 years ago to take things over and hopefully grow this thing into something a little bit bigger. Historically, we've delivered traditional advertising and marketing services. So, your television, radio, print stuff, commercial production, design and layout services. However, that's kind of morphed in recent years. And, we're really at this point focused on growing this team into something more than what it has been traditionally. Our service offerings have changed and evolved over the years. Our go-to-market strategy, how we acquire business, retain business, and then, ultimately, serve our greater community is something that I'm, really been focused on here in, my last 10 years on board. So it's kind of who we've been up to this point.
Awesome, man. I think you are the first podcast guest marketing agency owner that has an over 60-year agency. So that's quite a journey, and probably a lot of things have changed since the 1960s.
Yeah, well, just a few. I will say, I was very, very fortunate to have the opportunity, from my father to come on board after what he had kind of built and the foundation he had worked so hard to establish, over the course of the 35 years he was at the helm. Obviously, having that opportunity was one thing, but also just the confidence in him and, really the rest of the team to be able to do something special with this after 60 plus years. Fun fact, we are one of Baltimore's oldest and original advertising agencies, which is pretty cool. Something to be proud of.
Absolutely, man. And you had said you had joined the agency and started working for it about 12 years ago?
Yeah, roughly about 12 and a half or so, coming up on 13. Yeah. I was on the media side and media sales for a large media publication company and distributor across the world. And enjoyed that corporate experience kind of and what that was all about. But I got bit by the entrepreneurial bug when I was 13 years old and pretty quickly into the corporate world kind of realized that, one day, being working for myself and being a servant leader to others was really what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. Did you know from the get-go that you were going to take over the agency, like when you first started 12 years ago, or how did that kind of come about?
So my father didn't have an exit strategy. My father was an owner-operator. He grinded from sun up to sundown to not just support our family, but the families that, were tied to the agency through, his staff. And I think that as I came on board, I kind of had my head down, did what I knew best, which was mostly sales and developing new business for the firm. And then once he kind of brought me into operations a little bit and kind of showed me how things worked, that's really where I really started to kind of become excited and motivated to and kind of felt challenged to sort of like, all right, he's got something cool here. What can I build on top of this? Like, I'm always kind of forward thinking and immediately saw there to be opportunity for a firm, with this type of history and the type of people that we have, our team and our personnel, was just proud to be a part of it. So in short, to answer your question, when I came on board, I think the idea was that, hey, maybe this could be an exit strategy for my father and he'd have something to do with the shop when he was ready to retire. But it really didn't hit me and sink in that, wow, this is a really cool opportunity that I was salivating for till probably, 3-4 years in.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Since then, my father has retired, acquired the agency a few years ago. So that, we've made it through a fairly, I would say, challenging transition, both in good and the bad. Very fortunate that, I have the family that I do, and that, they, like I said before, trusted me, but also gave me the leash to do my thing, spread my wings and fail forward. My father always said, like, I don't have the answers to everything. And I certainly didn't as I was doing my thing and trying to grow this place. You're not either, but, surround yourself with good people and be a good leader to them and it'll pay back. So.
Awesome, man. And walk us through a little bit about that transitioning point where you became the owner, you became the president, you took the reins. What was going on and how did you kind of set up for that? And what were some of the experiences based around that transitioning point?
Well,
they kind of stand out for you.
Yeah. I think that it's one thing to feel, or it's one thing to say, we're going to change, or we're going to do some things differently around here. Maybe change the way that we approach certain projects or certain relationships with clients or vendors for that matter. I think it's another thing to feel that change and actually see it. And transition is kind of, I guess, a fancy word for change, really. Nobody likes it, and it's always difficult. And as humans, change is tough. It's difficult. But I felt that I kind of had a little bit of a problem saying yes to everything and trying to, and kind of having this sense of like, all right, I'll figure it out. Like, yep, just put it on my desk. I'll get to it. And I think that worked for a little while, until, we started bringing on more clients and more work. And I finally kind of had a little bit of a realization that I needed, the best thing for me was to learn when to say no, right? And learn when to delegate and learn when to assign responsibility. And I think at that point, as we were going through some of that transition, once I realized that, I was able to kind of almost go into neutral for a little bit, figure out which direction was my next best step. If I was going to begin to delegate more and assign more to the current team, in addition to new people that we needed to hire and bring on board, that was going to be my true value to the company. And on top of that, being able to go out and sell again and represent the firm on the front end, and be the face of things to develop more business and more relationships in the market. I wouldn't be able to do that if I was kind of touching everything along the way. So kind of like I said, with my father, owner operator, built a great business, and is awesome to have that opportunity to build from. The transition helped me realize if I truly wanted to achieve what I want, I needed to begin to delegate and be more of I would say, high level leader than what the firm had experienced in previous years.
Mm-hmm. One of the cool things about the story so far, as we're kind of looking back and seeing this transition and coming in, you came in as sales, then you started getting into the management piece, and then now, as you took it over, now you're moving into more of a leadership kind of role. And I know that from previous interviews with podcast guests, when they're kind of going through it, a lot of times there's kind of like some things that are challenging about those transitions, but they're also very necessary. And one of the things that you talked about was the delegation, the need to delegate. And the interesting part also is that you're getting to a place where in the agency, you're starting to reposition yourself based around your strengths. You came in from the sales side. Now you're delegating to teams more, and then being more in the leadership role, but also being on the sales side. What are some of the things that you learned, aside from the need for delegation, but what are some of the things that you learned either through that experience or through kind of learning how to position yourself in the agency that maybe you wish you would have known in the way beginning? Or
if I was to look back on things and I guess determine like what I know now, what do I wish I knew back then, maybe from the get go, it's kind of tied to what I was saying to you before. Is like, saying yes to everything can really dilute your impact. And when you're trying to grow something, whether it's from the ground up or build on top of something like what we're trying to do here, especially for all of us who naturally like to take ownership of things, it's easy to overextend ourselves. It's easy to, like I said before, just say, yes, I can do that because I've done it before, or because, it's been something that somebody else on the team has done before. But really over time, and it's tough to use the word trust, right out of the gate with something, but over time, I have learned to trust others, trust more of the team members, set clear boundaries, and, really turn around and look at myself and focus my, energy where it actually matters most. I don't think really scaling this business is about just doing more, right? Saying yes to opportunities and just doing more and more work. I think scaling is about doing the right things, and, with the right people here at the company. So I think, learning what I have learned, if somebody would have said to me, hey, approach your day to day with this type of mindset, like I just described from the get go, that would have been very nice to not have to go through that individual learning curve myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There are so many people that get stuck in thinking that, okay, I'm at 1 million. In order for me to get to 2 million, I just have to do double the amount of work. And I think a lot of people get stuck in that trap. And at least from my own experience talking with agency owners, a lot of times perfectionism is a big piece of that. The inability to actually let go, or there's like a saying, 80% done by somebody else is 100% awesome. I think Dan Martell said that. Like that kind of like framework is sometimes really hard for people to grasp.
One thing that I wish I'd have kind of maybe known from day one, or at least learned earlier than I did, was to just not overthink stuff so much. I tend to really put a lot of time into trying to be perfect and trying to make sure that, I'm making the right decision, whether it be on a proposal to a client, or a hiring decision, or a resource, conversation with a staff member of that sort. Like I've always overthought, and I kind of wish somebody shook me early along and be like, hey, no matter what you try, no matter how perfect you're gonna fail. It's natural. And we hear that a lot in everything that we read and stuff. But I think that would have been cool to just kind of been shook in the beginning and be like, hey, don't overthink things too much. Trust your gut, trust your experience, go with it, fail forward. And, that now that I really grasp onto that, I'm probably making decisions too quickly, but I'm certainly not, holding myself back like I feel like I was for some of those early years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the law of diminishing returns, where the amount of effort that takes to get to 60, 70, or 80%, you get to that certain point where you can get feedback or have somebody else come in, or, and then there's the law of diminishing returns, trying to get from the 80 to 100% by yourself. Ultimately, it just takes way longer than it actually is needed. And how I guess in a pivot of the conversation, because we talked a lot about the delegation piece, let's just say we delegate the work to somebody else. And one of the biggest things that I have realized working with you and talking with you is that you're not in kind of like a management role. You're more in like a visionary kind of leadership type of role, which is also another kind of switch. When you look at the vision, how do you like, what are some of the things that you've learned through the communication of your vision to the team? Because you have to be able to communicate things differently than what was happening in the past. Just off the cuff, I know this wasn't on any question, but like, what are some of the things that come up for you for like the communication of a vision to the team?
Yeah, so you're totally on with that, and I think everybody would agree communication is key, and it's something that whether someone's been here for 10, 12, 15 years, or they're starting next week, it's something I'm always very clear about discussing with them, that if there's ever a question, if there's ever something up, like, we have to communicate. We're only as good as a team if we can communicate and connect on things when needed. From my experience, I found that saying things, right, whether it be in person or at a meeting or in an email, certainly sets the tone, right? It allows the team to understand what I'm thinking, and perhaps what I'm planning. And I think that based on personality, work style, mindset for future and growth and all of that, depending on, the team member, I think some people, latch on to what you might say right away, or read in an email that you send them. And I think that other people kind of maybe don't latch on and are waiting to actually see things in action. So I have found that, saying things and talking about things, sure, that's great. But taking action really is what pushes things over the edge and really gets everybody to align with that vision. And there's been things that I've implemented into the business over the last 2 to 3 years that I wasn't doing prior when leading the team, and previous ownership wasn't doing. And I think that in order to grow a team right now and a business around what we're trying to do, and really our goal for this year is to become a destination employer for the best marketers in the area. I think that communicating that vision and effectively showing the team what can be done is really been impactful for me. And again, like, as we grow, there's a lot of that chicken or the egg. Do you bring on the next client before you make the next hire, or do you hire first and then go out and bring the revenue on? And I don't think there's a straight answer to that. I think it's a case by case, agency by agency, or business by business, situation. And it never stays the same. It's always changing and evolving, which makes it fun, but equally, fairly stressful. Uh, so I think that um, at where I'm at with what we're trying to do and how we communicate, just a little bit more of some more regularly scheduled meetings. We're a small team. I'm not trying to turn this into some corporate shop or anything of that nature, but that's kind of one extreme in how I see it. And then the other extreme is like low level communication, no clear vision, or no clear, insights to the team about the vision of the business, or, what I might have from the top down. With my vision, we need to be in the middle. And I think that we've done things, we've been here. I think we've done things in recent years that are bringing us more to the middle of that, that space, which I think will be really comfortable for a decent sized team, people looking for personal growth in their career, upward, opportunity within the same organization. So if we're communicating and we're showing in action, not just through words, but showing in action, we get buy-in. And next thing you know, we're getting people actually raising their hands and offering ideas and being more, contributive to the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm. One of the coolest things about what you just said was, first off, we've talked about the journey, not only from starting 12 years ago to taking over about 3 or so, and then going from kind of like an owner operator type of role into more like a visionary, and all the different kind of transitions that happen. Perfectionism was one of the biggest things that needed to be let go so you can delegate. The other piece was based around figuring out how to communicate a vision that might be different than what people are used to. and having it to where it's regularly scheduled. It doesn't have to be corporate, but you do need to communicate a vision, and you need to do it on a regular basis.
Mhm.
And one of the coolest things that you said just a second ago was that when you start communicating that vision, people start raising their hand and then offering help towards achieving that vision. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things, beautiful transitions that happen within your journey that you're sharing right now.
Thank you. I would agree with that, and I would say that I think when you look at your colleagues and you look at your team members and the people that you're leading, it's hard sometimes to take yourself out of your own shoes and put yourself in their shoes. Person by person by person, because everyone's so different. I think one of the biggest realizations is that there, there are people on your team that want more. There are people on your team that desire to contribute more. There are people on your team that maybe don't want any more, and maybe that's okay. But doing what kind of you were just describing and what we've experienced in recent years, I think naturally provides them an opportunity to feel comfortable about maybe stepping up and saying, "Hey, I've got an idea." Whereas maybe without that communication of vision and that clarity around where the ship is going and the direction that this cruise is headed, they may be more reluctant to maybe raise their hand because they don't know. So I think that, yeah, I think that that's been a huge thing. It almost has empowered our staff in different ways, across the board, which is pretty cool, pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of which, what are you excited about over the next 1 to 3 years within the agency? Like, what are you working on? What are you excited about?
Oh my gosh. I'm excited about everything. I think the only thing I'm not excited about is all the HR nonsense I know I'm going to have to deal with. It's just not something I'm a huge fan of, but regardless, we'll stay positive. Everything, man. There's so much cool stuff happening. I think the biggest thing I'm excited about right now is our people. We've brought some new resources on in probably the last 2 3 years was kind of our most recent rush of talent, and they're awesome. Like, they fit into the team so well. The culture is so fun, and everyone feels like they can be themselves, and it's just cool to walk in and hear people having fun and enjoying their time when I know they're away from their family or their children, or they're devoting units of their life to this business. So it's really cool to experience that. I think that prior to that, I brought a pretty important, like, key player here on board to run our digital and be our VP of digital, and that was a monumentous change for us in terms of how we were able to go to market, the services and solutions we could provide clients. Just our general way of thinking and being a partner and a true resource for our clients has evolved so much since him joining the team. So I think the people part of where we are right now is what I'm really looking forward to the most, and growing that. Even though I say the HR side's kind of my biggest thorn, I think that can easily be resolved with finding a lead or finding someone to come in and help me keep that side of the house in order. I'm really also excited about just our opportunities with new business and the types of clients and brands that we can be working with now. If you'd have taken a look at our website, just 6 7 years ago, and then looked at it today, we look like two totally different businesses. We've gone through a little bit of a brand refresh as we've evolved. Again, our services, our people, our capabilities. But just the the roster of clients, the portfolio style of clients, and the type of work that we've been contracted for just in the last 12 months has been so rewarding to see. Hey, we got the contract from this brand. Now we have this brand on the roster. And that's, again, probably due to my background in business development and things in account management. I just love that's super exciting. I think the staff too recognizes, oh wow, we're doing work for them now. Like, awesome, let's go. I've always had ideas for that brand, or I've always wanted to pursue a campaign for a client in that vertical or that industry. So it's bringing, I think, a pretty positive sense of encouragement to the rest of the staff when we're bringing on some of these accounts and these brands, which has been great. Um, I think there's a big opportunity in our space right now. And, we call ourselves a full service, omni-channel performance and growth marketing agency, right? Advertising is kind of a form of marketing, as we know, and there's kind of a lot of different, spokes off of the marketing wheel. Um, Advertising it's in our blood. It's the core of what we do. But there's so much tied to that now, outside of just putting an ad together, testing a message on a channel with an audience. Once you really get that defined, that's kind of the performance side of things, and making sure that clients understand, hey, um, we need to set expectations before we get into this campaign, before we start spending money and trying to drive, results towards your goals and objectives. ROI is important. They need, whatever the ROAS is on this spend, or, those types of metrics, all great. And performance is awesome. Performance marketing, I think, has really grown in the last 8 years, drastically. However, I think that, we have all kind of gotten, I would say, lost in the performance marketing clouds. As some of you may know, or may not, performance marketing, it has its law of diminishing returns, like you were saying earlier with that other topic, Jesse. You get to a point where you've kind of maximized and saturated your total addressable market or your target audience. And I think some brands, and some rather big ones, in recent years, have realized they put all their eggs in that performance marketing basket to try and, squeeze as much revenue and juice out of that spend as they can. But have they realized, I think, and I think that brands are starting to realize this more now. This is that transition I'm speaking about. Growth marketing is what we really need to be focused on, and the brand side of it, right? Growing the brand at the top of the funnel, creating a moat around our brand and around what we stand for is a really, really big thing. Um, Granted, we know that not every one of our clients has unlimited budget, and what I mean, can invest in all phases of the funnel to grow their business. But you know, I always say, and I stated this before about our business, and everybody listening, same thing. You're in business for two things: acquiring new business and retaining the business that you have. And when I look at our clients, it's the same thing. I think, yes, there is growth and retention through performance marketing, but you certainly aren't going to see that exponential growth and that continuous growth if you're not investing in the brand, if you're not investing in, telling the story and why people need to trust you, or how you might be different from your competitors. I think that it's all about depth over noise. And I think, the brands that are winning right now, they're not just pushing content out there and, seeing what sticks. They're creating trust, they're creating community, and they're creating a sense of shared values, whether it's through an advertising message or a marketing message. People want connection. They don't just want promotion thrown at them. And so there's a fine balance between that. On the performance side, run the promotions, buy one, get one, 20% off first order, blah, 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 whatever it might be. Yeah, that's going to, help you align your numbers and get you where you need to be on the performance side from a return on investment perspective. Um, but, regardless of that, there's people that are very, tone deaf to the promotion. They don't want to see all that. They want to understand who you are as a brand. Why do you stand for what you stand for? How are you different from the competition? So, I would say that, to wrap it up, yeah, tech and AI, they're accelerating what's possible for everybody in the world right now. But the brands that stand out right now, they still feel human. They are authentic, they are consistent, and they are very clear on who they serve. And that's something that I feel we have an opportunity to really uh, help our clients and future clients with, as the landscape continues to evolve and change in the future.
Mm-hmm. That's exciting, man.
Yeah. It's, again, I could probably continue to talk on that one for a little bit because there's a lot to be excited about. We're
We'll just
renovating
have to do
we're
another.
renovating office space. Like, we're doing a lot of cool stuff, a lot of fun stuff.
Mm-hmm. Telling you, we'll just have to do another podcast interview sometime soon. So
Maybe. I'm not swinging a hammer putting up drywall.
awesome. So if anybody's listening and they want to get in touch with you or learn more about your agency, what would you say to them? What's the best way to get in touch?
So the best way to get in touch would either be, just direct through our website, which is www.srb Sam Robert Baker, ADV Apple David Victor.com, SRBADV.com. Or you can look for me on LinkedIn, Chad Bauer. Connect with me, shoot me a DM if you'd like to chat. I am a people person. I invest in my people here at the firm, and I'm a big believer that we are what makes the world go round. I love to surround myself with, teams of advisors and people that are smarter than me, to help lift me up and support, what I'm trying to do. And whenever I can give back or help somebody, get through something or support them through something that they're going through, I'm always willing and happy to do so. So even if it's just for hey, got a quick question about this, or have you experienced that, and shoot me a DM on LinkedIn, and I'll definitely get to you.
Sweet. And for anybody that's listening, links to Chad and SR&B will be in the show notes. And Chad, I just want to thank you so much for being on the show today, man.
Absolutely, Jesse. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Agency owners, if you want to transform your agency to sustain and grow without your direct involvement, where you can stop working in the business and start working on the business, where you can free up your time, delegate work more effectively, price and position your services to finally get paid for what you're worth, and have the team run the day-to-day, go to nicheandcontrol.com/case study now to learn more about leverage for growth. And also to book a free strategy session with us. We'll look at your systems, determine exactly what you need to do in order for you to scale this year, and to create a strategic plan so that you can live the life of entrepreneurship you've always dreamed about. Go to nicheandcontrol.com/case study now.